Michigan's Secretary of State says her state's elections are, quote, among the most secure in the country. In a piece for the Detroit Free Press, Secretary Jocelyn Benson assures all votes will be counted, adding that results in the battleground will, quote, accurately reflect the will of the people. As of Friday, more than 2.6 million Michiganders have already voted. That's nearly half the record-breaking 5.8 million who the Secretary's office says turned out in 2008. Michigan Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson joins me now. Welcome, Secretary. You write that voters can be certain of Michigan's election security. How does your state's election process ensure that?
Well, we have a number of time-tested security protocols in place that, in fact, many other states share when it comes to protecting and ensuring only valid absentee ballots count. We have a signature check process to confirm a voter's identity before validating a ballot, and then after that, we have a bipartisan task force of folks overseeing the process to ensure a fair and effective count of those ballots. So everyone is really just committed to ensuring that every vote, every valid vote is counted, and that the results ultimately are an accurate reflection of the will of the people.
You also wrote in that piece that Michiganders are, quote, being inundated with misinformation. Why do you think that is, and what cautions do you want to offer to voters?
Well, that we're all in this together, that we really expect and really call upon our voters and voters all around the country to reject the misinformation that we're going to be inundated with from political leaders, foreign entities, and many others in the days ahead. I mean, we've in Michigan, we've seen mailers, robocalls, text messages, lawsuits, all seeking to scare and confuse citizens in the hopes that it will deter them from voting and sow seeds of doubt among our electorate regarding the legitimacy of our democracy. I mean, to me, these efforts are one of the most pernicious and pervasive threats to the security of our elections, and really require all of us to use every tool at our disposal to counter this threat with accurate information. So we're calling on voters, if you see something, say something. Report it to your state's chief election official. In Michigan, we ask people to report it to us at misinformation@michigan.gov, so that at any point today, tomorrow, or through the remainder of this election cycle, we can respond with accurate information and provide voters with trusted sources of information to share on social media and elsewhere to debunk any myths that will undoubtedly percolate in the days ahead.
I'm so excited to be speaking with you, Secretary, because your state is really an important one in determining who could be the next president. And you're anticipating that 3 million people will vote before sunrise on Election Day there in your state. But since your state only begins processing ballots the day before, and you won't count any early ballots before the 3rd, how realistic is it that Michigan will have a result by the end of the day on Tuesday?
It's not realistic because, look, we will have, as you mentioned, probably over 3 million absentee ballots to count securely, methodically, to ensure an accurate count at the end of the full tabulation. So if we can't begin that tabulation until 7 a.m. on Election Day, it's going to take some time, and it's probably going to take more than 10 or 12 hours to finish a full tabulation. Now, once the polls close, we're committed to ensuring that the public has all the information we have about the tabulation. We'll be announcing results as they're available, but we want people to know it may take up to 80 hours for our current infrastructure to process and tabulate those 3 million ballots. You'll hear other states like Florida, Ohio, Kentucky, North Carolina, perhaps with results sooner than that, but with similarly large numbers of absentee ballots. They can announce their results sooner, though still unofficial, because they'll be able to start tabulating those ballots long prior to Election Day. We can't do that here in Michigan. We can't start until Tuesday morning, but rest assured we will be counting every single valid vote, and we will ensure that the results, whenever they're announced, will be a full and accurate reflection of the will of those voters.
80 hours is a long time, especially given that Americans are used to learning about those results practically in near real time in the last several elections. We've been trying to temper expectations here at CBS with all of our viewers about that. But do you feel hamstrung by this process since you can't start tabulating those votes early? And tell us a little bit more about what's going to be going on. What are the votes that you're going to be able to report early on, and how much will those early ballots be counted into the people who are going to be in those tabulations in the counties, including people who are voting in the more traditional going to the polls way?
Well, certainly on Election Day, we'll have those two tracks, people voting and tabulating their ballots as they go in the polls. And then we'll have, two-thirds of the electorate who will have voted prior to Election Day and tabulating all those ballots, checking signatures, affirming the validity, opening the envelope, sorting them, putting through the machines. It takes time. And so recognizing that, we're going to, after the polls close, begin letting folks know where we are in that process. It may be the case that some jurisdictions, and we've got 1,500 of them, some jurisdictions may be complete with their full absentee ballot tabulation by Tuesday night. And if that's the case, you'll hear their results. But if others take a little bit longer, we want to give them the space and the time to methodically and securely work through the full tabulation, because we don't want to have inaccurate speculation out there. We want only accuracy to rule the conversations following the closure of the polls. So again, we'll get that information out as soon as we can. We've doubled and in some cases tripled the number of machines that we'll have in place to tabulate ballots efficiently. And our hardworking clerks are going to, I'm sure, meet or possibly exceed expectations by doing everything they can to have an efficient process. But we will prioritize accuracy above all else.
I also want to ask you about a recent court case. A Michigan judge blocked your efforts to ban the open carry of guns at polling places. Both you and the Attorney General appealed that decision this week, but the court again struck it down, arguing that the state already has a law that makes voter intimidation illegal. What more can you tell us about this ongoing battle, and how concerned are you about the fact that that people may now utilize their open carry privileges to be near polling places? Is that something that you're concerned about?
Well, I'll say as Michigan's chief election officer, I'm determined to ensure that every voter is protected and every citizen who has a right to cast their vote on Election Day can do so free from an intimidation and harassment. And notably, the Court of Appeals recognized, as you mentioned, that anyone who intimidates a voter in Michigan by brandishing a firearm is committing a felony under existing law. And that law is enforceable, as the court said, by our executive branch as well as local law enforcement. So I'm going to continue to do everything in my authority to protect and ensure the safety of every voter and the sanctity of our polling places, noting that what we were simply trying to do ahead of time was create a bright line as to what amounts to voter intimidation. But I do have confidence that our poll workers and our local and state law enforcement are prepared to protect every voter from intimidation, however it may emerge. And I think, to me, the idea of instilling fear in the heart of any voter right before they cast their vote for the leader of the free world is antithetical to everything our democracy stands for. So we're going to continue to do all that we can up through Election Day to protect every voice, protect every voter, and voters should be confident that we're on guard and we will ensure their experience is safe.
You said bright line. Do you think that the court's decision muddied that line?
Potentially, and I want to note there's, the litigation is still ongoing, but I'm confident in our poll workers and our local law enforcement to be quite clear about what voter intimidation threats or harassment are. And so, in that regard, I'm very certain that our at the local level in these precincts, and we'll have folks in the field from my office all throughout Election Day, all across the state as well, to ensure that the law is followed. And the bottom line is, voter intimidation is illegal. The law again clearly says brandishing a firearm is illegal in a polling place, and so we're going to make sure our poll workers know who to call if they see any potential threats or harassment, and that we can get to it swiftly and protect every voter. But again, we're also anticipating smooth sailing on Election Day. Not a lot of long lines, health and safety at the polls. PPE has been provided, masks, gloves, and all the rest to ensure the health of our voters is also protected. So this is just another effort to, create a protection of our poll workers and our precincts. But I'm confident that we're doing everything we can, and that the public will support our efforts, as so many already have, to protect the sanctity of the polling place and protect every voter on Election Day.
All right, Secretary Jocelyn Benson, you certainly have some exciting and busy couple of days ahead of you. Thank you for taking some time to talk to all of us.
Of course, thank you.